Mason, Margielas, unreleased color palettes, make them all jealous. You could buy the drip, but the swag's so separate. Ponytail poppy, now I sport the fade. Woke up one morning, said it's time for a change. I am one of one, my name is my name. Cartier, cedar core, vintage wood frames. Everything clear when you living in the air. In the pilot on call, press a button and you there. Or your car got a roof, press a button, disappear. On the coupe, like poof, everything I do is rare, but I swear, if you could walk a mile in my shoes, you would stop it. If you could pull the bitches that I pull, you be solid. Manifesting everything I am, I'm a prophet. And when it comes to that bottom line, I want profit. I say get down when I say you get down. I say get down when I say you get down. I say get down when I say.
What's good? You already know who it is, man. It's yours truly. This is Icons and Ideas presents the world according to K Nellz. And I'm K Nellz. We got another great episode for you. Just obviously talking about everything that's going on, from politics to hip hop to pop culture to relationships, religion, science, whatever. There's nothing under the sun that I'm not willing, ready, and capable of talking about. So I appreciate everybody that's been rocking with me. I encourage everybody to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, comment, share. And we just going to keep giving you this content, keep giving you dope conversation, dope insight, and, rocking how we rocking. So this is episode 8. Let's kick it off. Let's talk about the artist formerly known as. I'm not even going to call him. I was about to say slime. I'm not even going. We leaving all of that in the past. Listen, man. Young Thug is free. Let's kick this episode off talking about my man, Jeffrey, a.k.a. Young Thug. So, obviously, several episodes back, I kind of touched on what was going on with the trial here and there without having myself sound like these social media lawyers that be capitalizing off of monetizing, talking about, giving insight for with no real background in the streets or legally. So I didn't want to be like them, but it is relevant to what's going on. So it's certain things that I wanted to talk about, and I have covered it in some capacity on previous episodes. But this one, we can kind of put a bow on it. Obviously, Young Thug is going to be able to continue his life and career. A few hiccups. He is on probation for 15 years. It is heavily stipulated probation. So he definitely have to walk a tightrope for the foreseeable future so he don't get tricked out of his position. So I definitely want to send love, positive energy as it pertains to that, because I know a lot of people that's victims of the system. I know a lot of people that have to deal with probation and all of that, and it's a never-ending cycle. So, but outside of that, he was facing up to 45 years to life. It was a state RICO charge, racketeering, conspiracy, all of the big stuff. Operating a gang, kingpin, everything that they could throw on you to try to make this case stick. And unfortunately, as I said before in previous episodes, the state just failed miserably. You could see as the trial was unfolding, it was a circus act. They had to switch judges. The judges was colluding in secret with the DA. It was just like what are we talking about? Like, that judge need to be disbarred, man. He don't need to be a judge nowhere else. Like, get him out of here indefinitely. This is ridiculous. But the incompetence and the missteps of the DA and the state to bring a case that was going to stick against Thug, they failed miserably. The witnesses that they did have to testify, it was for everybody. I know I'm long soliloquy. My apologies. Everybody that's been following the case, it was definitely a circus. The reason why I want to talk about it, as always, I have to share perspective. So it's a couple of things. One, what we have to realize as black people, and especially black entertainers or black people of affluence, the judicial system is just an extension of white supremacy. Yeah, we going down that rabbit hole. But I have to, because that's the real. We keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe. When are we going to realize that they use the judicial system to trap us in ways that they otherwise wouldn't be able to? And we keep on doing the things that allow them to use the judiciary system to trap us. So I want to use this, like what's going on with Thug and a lot of other rappers nowadays. I really want it to be a cautionary tale for all aspiring artists, all aspiring rappers, athletes, entertainers. You have to understand the system under which we have to operate in order for you to avoid the said system. And oftentimes we don't. Let's examine why they created the RICO laws to begin with. The federal RICO laws was created to get the mafia. Now, I want to take you back further so you know how deep the rabbit hole goes. The reason why the mafia was untouchable for a long period of time is because they had blackmail evidence against J. Edgar Hoover. And they had blackmail evidence against the clandestine services going all the way back to the inception of the 5 families in New York, the organized crime syndicate. So because of that blackmail evidence that they had on J. Edgar Hoover, they always had a get out of jail free card. And so you don't really hear the mafia being prosecuted in large scale until they establish the RICO statutes, until they establish those conspiracy and racketeering laws. And they use that because they literally couldn't get the mafia on nothing else. So now we got to let's examine that history for a brief moment. In one end, they establish the laws because we got to be able to figure out a way to get them on something. And they do. And then when you take it back further than that, the reason why the mafia was able to operate with the level of impunity that they were able to operate with for the length of time that they was able to operate in this capacity was because J. Edgar Hoover was a closeted homosexual. The mafia ran the nightclubs, and they had pictures of J. Edgar Hoover cross-dressing and all of that and indulging in his lifestyle. And we talking about in a time where that was not socially acceptable is an understatement. It wasn't even it was just unexplored territory. Like it would have ruined whatever career that J. Edgar Hoover was trying to build. And the mafia knew that, and they was able to leverage that. And so you can take it back a step further and examine the fact that one of the main reasons why the FBI was even created was to go after Jack Johnson. I'm telling you, follow me, right? Because I'm creating a narrative for the history. So I say that to say this system has always been able to, since they let over 1 million former slaves go, the system has always been used to, pardon my French, keep these niggas in check. Keep these niggas in line. That is why the system, the judiciary system, the system of policing, the system of the clandestine services, that's why it was created. So it's important to understand that history, because if you don't understand that history, then you're definitely going to repeat it. And fast forward to present day, what do we see? We see if these athletes, entertainers, actors, etc., if y'all get out of line, we're going to keep these niggas in check. And unfortunately for young black rappers, we play right into every narrative, every trope that they have that exists. Every single one. We play right into their hands. So it's not even surprising anymore, because that's how the system is designed that way. Like, you can't, if you keep seeing consistency, that's not a cog in the machine. That's not happenstance. That's the way the system is supposed to work. And what went down with Thug was no exception. Obviously, you know, those of us that's familiar with Atlanta, we know what part of Atlanta Thug is from, and we know the tension in the city and all the things that was going on. What I don't know and what I won't speak to is what he is guilty or innocent of, because I don't know that for a fact. I know what the plea deal was, and I know what was ruled on. But what I will say is this: having family that's been in and out of the judicial system for my entire life, having close friends and close loved ones in and out of the judicial system for my entire life, I don't want to see none of us behind the walls. So A victory for one is a small step in a victory for everybody. But what I want to talk about and what I want to admonish us is let's stop falling for the same tricks, yo. They playing this. The game ain't changed. The rules ain't changed. They playing the same game, and we keep playing into their hand. Salute the young thug. I'm so happy he free. You know what I mean? Free my brother. Free Wally. You know what I mean? Free all the ones that I grew up with that's locked down. You know, the interesting thing about capitalism? Capitalism make you an opportunist. I got to give a salute to Black Ice, deaf poet from Philly. Capitalism make you an opportunist, and at the same time, it institutionalize you. So to see niggas get big deals, big monies, and then go to jail shouldn't surprise you. That's what lies do. And most of these guys do have raw talent, just infantile education. So the business feeds them all the weed, ecstasy, and a little bit of paper to provide some pacification to, in turn, cope for the bullshit frustration they serve you. Meanwhile, they corrupt your perception of what the real is. Taking all that activists made them rappers just flapping their jaws, afraid to admit their treason. Taking all the soldiers for the cause and made them killers for no reason. So America, in many ways, create the environment that they then persecute you for being conditioned by. And that's the reality. That's the consistent reality of the African American experience within this country. That's a consistent reality of the poor experience within this country. So no, the system is not broken. The system is working exactly how it intends to. So now that we know that the system isn't broken and this is how the system is supposed to be working, we got to sharpen that game, not to avoid the system, but to outwit the system, to outsmart the system, and don't get caught up in the system. So salute the thugs, salute the everybody that's behind the walls. I pray, you know, you deal with the traumas of your experiences in a way that can create some sort of peace of mind. I'm sending energy and prayers to you, because you know, for all my family and friends that's behind the walls, I know it ain't easy. No man's supposed to be in them conditions. But while we out here, we have to understand the privilege of this freedom that we have. So salute the young thug. Like I said, I don't got nothing to say about the specifics of the trial and what went down and what transpired. But what I wanted to talk about is the stuff that I feel like we need to talk about as it pertains to young thug. And that's understanding that as black people, as black entertainers, as black athletes and things like that, once you get a certain level of affluence, you have to understand there is a target on your back. And because there's a target on your back, you have to be very strategic. And I'll end it by quoting the great Malcolm X. He said, we're not outnumbered, we just out-organized. We got to be strategic in everything that we do, because the system has all of the trappings that you want, the system has ready and available to you. You just have to have the discipline, fortitude, and wherewithal not to fall victim to the same old, same old. So, salute the young thug. I'm glad you home. Spend time with your family, regroup, and continue to build your music empire. Let's talk about Angel Reese. You know, I had a little conversation, little PSA for Angel Reese, but we're going to pivot a little bit. So, you know, Angel Reese, she do her podcast, right? On her podcast, and let's sidebar, she be getting a lot of criticism for everything. Like, you know how many active athletes have podcasts now? She have a podcast she need to be focused on. Caitlin Clark focused on ball. Why is she focused on the podcast? Man, listen. They got two different careers, two different trajectories, two different personalities. Let them rock. Let both of them do their thing. So with that being said, Angel Reese had Shaq on her podcast. And for those of us that seen it, it kind of got interesting when Shaq started giving his opinion on what would draw attention to the WNBA. As we all know, there's been a level of success that has come to the WNBA over the last 2 to 3 years, with last year being its most successful year to date in terms of viewership, attraction, ticket sales, memorabilia, etc., etc. Shaq was like, listen, y'all need to lower the rim a little bit so that women could dunk. And that's going to help. That's going to be the attraction. And that's a narrative that we heard before, but this way it took a turn. He was like, because, imagine, you come down in the little shorts dunking, like, and it kind of, a lot of people is saying Uncle Shaq, who's supposed to be like a big brother / mentor to Angel Reese because of their LSU connection, he turned into the creepy old man. Now, I'm a reserve judgment, but I will say it is a thin line. You got to be tactful and mindful when you having these conversations about the perception. And that's just what it is. That's the times we live in. I can't front. Shaq was sounding like the creepy old man. Now, your intentions really don't matter at that point, because once you on the world stage and you put content out for the world, you leave it up to the world to interpret as they see fit. That's why you want to be clear with your intentions before you start going down certain rabbit holes. And Shaq was not clear. So I don't know if it's going to be any backlash because of how big Shaq is, pause. I don't know if it's going to be any backlash because of his celebrity stature. But if it is, I understand why. Now, this is why it took kind of like an ill turn. Angel Reese did start to her body language started to be like visibly uncomfortable. So that's where the conversation could be had like, yo, Shaq, you was crossing the line. Like, you couldn't read the room. Like, you just kept repeating. Like, remember when you had Imagine You. You had them little shorts, the ones you wore, courtside, like them little shorts, you dunking, everybody watching, all the men watching. And obviously a lot of women, including Angel Reese, disagree with that narrative. They feel like it's not going to matter if women dunk or not. That's not going to be the deciding factor that brings attraction to the WNBA. So Shaq was wilding. And I got to give Shaq his criticism, rightfully so, because he didn't read the room. If that's really Lil Sis, if you really like Big Brother Mentor, then you should have known that her body language was showing visible discomfort. And if she visibly uncomfortable at that point, then pivot away from the conversation, make a joke how you do, keep it moving. And I have to give grace, as y'all know I always do. That pivot could have taken place off camera afterwards. He could have recognized and been like, yeah, I know it was blah, blah, blah. I don't know if that took place. I'm not saying that it did. I'm not saying that it didn't. I'm just saying that I feel like Shaq had a responsibility to read the room. Like, he just kept repeating the same thing over and over again. Now, Shaq, you gotta, you gotta live with that. You gotta live with that criticism no matter what. So I'm gonna give you that charge. But it's very important also that I have a conversation about Angel Reese, right? I rock with sis, she doing her thing, right? But this is what we have to understand about the power of perception. When you're in the public space, everything that you do becomes scrutinized. That's the unintended consequence of celebrity. It's a great clip by Trevor Noah when he was on the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett, where he was talking about how, he was talking about the gift and curse of celebrity. And he was like, the unfortunate part about my gifts and talents is that it come with fame. Like, I don't want it, but I understand. And Trevor Noah said, I don't want the fame, but I understand that that's what comes with being a successful comedian, entertainer, etc. If he could have all of the success without the fame, then he would. And most people would opt for that. But the conversation became more nuanced because he was talking about how his mother kind of used the parable to say, because of your celebrity, you belong to the public at large. You belong to the populace. Like, they own you, for lack of a better expression. And I thought that was a very interesting take, because y'all hear me say all the time, once you become a public figure, then you have to accept everything that comes with that, right, wrong, indifferent, good, bad, ugly. You can't pray for rain and get mad at the mud. Celebrity is the mud that comes with all the rain of success as a WNBA player, as a socialite, as a social media star, all of those things. It comes with it. So now you got to take the good with the bad. Nobody is going to do that perfectly. That's just real. We human. We're flawed in that way. And people are very unpredictable. And by people, I mean the public at large. The populace have all type of interior motives, and now they begin to objectify you. And that's what they do. And so you no longer become a human being once you attain a certain level of celebrity. You are an object to be deified, to be celebrated, to be, fanned over. And because of that, that's why we have to be real with the perception that's created based off of celebrity. I say that to say, Angel Reese, the way you, I'm going to say, and I'm being very tactful with my words because I want to be as impactful. I want my sentiments to be as impactful as possible. You understand the power of your sexuality, and you use every part of that power to your advantage. And you should. There's nothing wrong with that. The flip side to that is your sexuality is always on display because that's a part of your celebrity. That's the part of the thing that makes you, yes, you're a talented basketball player. Yes, you are an accomplished basketball player. Yes, you're fierce. For all intents and purpose, you're strong. You've shown a wide range of positive qualities that you've built your persona and perspective on. All of that is exaggerated by your physical appearance and your beauty. This is not a knock against you. I don't want you to feel like I'm knocking you because you're beautiful. I'm not saying that what Shaq's position was okay because you're beautiful. But the perspective that I have to paint is your sexuality in terms of your appearance, the way you look, the way you dress, what you reveal, it is all a part of your brand. You leave that for the public to interpret how they choose. So now, the unfortunate reality of it all is, Angel Reese, for as long as you are a public figure, you will be objectified. That's the reality. Is it right? Is it wrong? Not my position. Does it justify Shaq's behavior? No. But you wore the little shorts courtside. You know there's cameras trained on you everywhere you go. And by now, because I know it's early, I'm giving you grace, you young, celebrity is new to you. But by now, you have experienced enough over the last several years to know everything that you do is going to be picked apart with a fine-tooth comb. So you put on that outfit, and it was beautiful. It was also very revealing. As the folks, I think the term is scantily clad. But you knew what that outfit was when you put it on. And guess what Shaq did? He pointed to that very thing. Now, this is where I'll interject my opinion. Shaq was wild out of pocket. He was wild irresponsible because he take on a big brother, little sister role. Now it seems like you're trying to leverage that mentorship to be a perv. Bro, if you really wanted to move that way, just move that way. Like, you don't have to justify why you want to move that way. That's just that you charge it to the game. That's what it is. But when you see the interaction, it's so weird. It's like, come on, Shaq, yo, you got to read the room. You're not beyond reproach at the end of the day. I'm not going to suggest, Angel Reese, you change anything that you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep being you. You handled it, I think, as best as you could with the skills that you have. I'll just encourage you to keep doing your thing. Understand that you have to, let me rephrase that. I'm not going to say you have to accept, because you don't have to accept. But I want you to understand, I truly want you to understand that you're not going to like everything that comes with the celebrity that you have. But you can't have the rain without the mud. So just know it's going to be some mud, for sure. But the rain is going to be far more beneficial to your overall harvest. So I want you to keep that in mind. Shaq, get it together, G. You wildin'. Tighten up, champ. if that's really Lil Sis, if you really taking on, you know, big brother, Lil Sis, mentorship type role, then you got to know how to read the room, and you got to know when Lil Sis is a little uncomfortable. Because from my perspective, on the outside looking in, she was looking real uncomfortable. So be sharp. Again, Angel Reese, I know you're dealing with a lot because your circumstances is different. You gotta carry a lot for the celebrity that you have, for the accomplishments that you have, for everything that you're doing and how you're moving. But that's the unintended consequence of being a superstar. And Angel Reese, you are a superstar. So like I said, last time, you'll heal up, get ready for the next WNBA season. I'm going to be tuned in. I'm definitely a fan. I'm a supporter. Keep rocking. This is The World According to K Nellz, and I am yours truly, K Nellz. Let's talk Meg The Stallion, man. So Meg The Stallion recently made news, for those of us that are aware. I guess, and by news, I mean social media news, not the mainstream media. But she's, I don't know if the documentary is released yet. Clips from the documentary has came out. Maybe the documentary has been released, but in it, it's a clip of her talking about lying to Gayle King when Gayle King specifically asked her, did she have a sexual relationship with Tory Lanez? To which we know, if you saw the interview, she denied it. She was like, no. And she was like, yeah, she lied. She was like, yeah, I had sex with him like maybe once or twice. We knew that though. Like, we knew that. That part wasn't a secret. Any adult who has any experience with seeing two people who has had sexual relations before, we know what that looked like. And it looked like Tory and Meg. So that part wasn't a surprise. But now obviously it unearths so much, because there's always speculation and scrutiny on both sides with Tory Lanez and with Megan. Tory Lanez is locked up for the incident that transpired, serving time for the incident that transpired. Meg The Stallion, I don't know. I haven't watched the documentary yet. Let me preface that. I don't know what would the motive be to include that part in the documentary, especially when you have the scrutiny of everything that's going on. It's just so volatile. Like, unfortunately, we're not dealing with the truth in this. It's like everybody is giving their version of the truth, and everybody feel like they're right. So what's actually the truth? Tory feel like he right and he's telling the truth. Megan, you right, you telling the truth. Your friend Kelsey, she right, she telling the truth. It just, I don't see the purpose. And maybe the purpose will be more evident after I watch the documentary, and I'll take time to watch the documentary. But again, I have to abide by my own rules. I have to give her grace and say, maybe this is emotional vindication for her. Maybe these are the types of things that you release up off you to let something go and finally get closure and be done with it. So maybe that is the case for her. I want to give her that grace to explore that. I could only speak from kind of an objective point of view as the outside looking in, like we all are. Just looking at how she was moving, it was like, man, if you tell one lie, you'll tell another. If you tell a little lie, you'll tell a big lie. For me, I'm actually more affected, for lack of a better expression, by the little lies. Now, I'm going to pivot from kind of the Megan and Tory situation to just deal with the personal principles that I live by, right? On a personal level, I'm always like, my mother raised us to, like, lying was the cardinal sin. Like, it was a lot of things that we could get away with. Lying was not one of them. If you got caught in a lie, oh my God, that's how my mother ain't play. So what it did, though, it taught me a very valuable lesson early on. Lying is dangerous because it's never usually just one lie, because you're going to have to tell another lie to cover up that lie. Then you're going to have to remember the lies that you told to stay consistent with the lie. And then you have to tell more lies to, it's just, it's a never ending tale. It's a never ending cycle. So, to quote the Ray Charles movie, you scratch a lie, you find a thief. And the only real sin is stealing. It's thievery. If you take a man's possession, that's stealing. If you take a man's life, stealing. If you take a man's wife, stealing. So that lie is a slippery slope. So that's why it's very dangerous to tell the little lies. It's like, why are you lying about something little? Like, it's not even any recourse for that. Like, it's not even, like, let's say in that moment, Megan told the obvious truth. And I'm going to say it again. I believe in giving people grace, so I'll give her grace. The tension of the moment, right there, you wasn't expecting it. It's Gayle King. It's the world stage. Bam, gut punch, right out the blue. I'll give you all of that. In that moment, nothing is more important to you than the truth. Why not just lean into the truth in that moment? So I don't understand why she decided to lie. And again, when I watch her documentary, I'm sure she'll make that more apparent. But from where it stands now, I genuinely don't know why she lied. She was just better off telling the truth, because now it unearths so many narratives. Well, if you lying about this, what else are you lying about? And it becomes unnecessary. Shorty been through a lot in her life. You know what I mean? And all of us are conditioned, fashioned by the things that we go through. She's no exception. And so I know a lot of this was very difficult to deal with for anybody, but especially to deal with as a public figure on the world stage, for people to have opinions and all of those things about you. So in a space that's dominated by male egotism, and it's all of those things play into it. But the reality is your peace of mind is the only thing that's important. And truth is a very important ingredient to peace of mind. It's very difficult to exist in a level of peace when there's calamity of lies all around you. So, you know, I'm sure if she could go back in time, she would just lean into the truth. But what's done is done. But as I always say, we live in the social media age. Once you put it out in the public space, you leave it up to the interpretation of the world. So people are going to have opinions. People are going to feel some type of way. I've already seen the narratives all over social media. Obviously, feminist social media is hoorah-rah in support for. And then you got all of the other social media saying, look, I knew Tory is vindicated. Megan is lying. She lied about that. What else is she lying about? So on and so forth. I'm not even going to pretend to know the truth. I know what it looked like. I feel what it looks like, but that's not always the case. So it is what it is. I'm going to leave that one exactly where it is, but I just have to encourage everybody just to be mindful. To be mindful, right? Give everybody patience, passion, compassion, and understanding. Be mindful, right? And I'm going to do the same for Meg. I'm going to give you grace, but always leaning into the truth. I would rather tell the uncomfortable truth than the comfortable lie. Of course, this is Icons and Ideas Presents the World According to Nellz, and guess what? I'm the guy. I'm yours truly, Nellz. So, man, I got to talk about, you know, I kind of kick things off talking about Young Thug. I'm going to pivot to talk about Young Durk. Recently, Young Durk was arrested, murder for hire, in retaliation for the death of King Von, killing one of Quando Rondo's close associates. It may have even been a family member, and Quando Rondo was the target, so on and so forth. I'll take a moment to pause because it's so much that I want to say pertaining to this, and I genuinely don't know where to start. So let's take a macro view, right? Let's take a macro view, and we'll start off by talking about the overarching themes that we know. Young Durk and NBA Youngboy was beefing. NBA Youngboy, Quando Rondo was an affiliate of NBA Youngboy. King Von, obviously affiliate of Durk. And we know the circumstances behind King Von passing. That obviously was going to lead itself into retaliation, because that's the environment. That's the environment that Durk comes from. That's how he was conditioned. He was not conditioned to just let it slide. And allegedly, he is responsible for a murder for hire plot to get Quando Rondo killed that resulted in the death of a close associate and not him. And now, the investigation opened up and all roads was able to allegedly lead back to Durk. I was having a conversation with an acquaintance, I'll call him, via social media, because a lot of people speak on the instances like what transpired with Durk and so many others, right? Thug, all of them. And we have a tendency as black people to speak in such a judgmental and persecutorial tone because we like, yo, y'all made it out. I get it. Y'all made it out. Like, y'all rich, y'all making music, you doing what you love, you got all of the resources in the world. Why would you still have your hand in the streets? And although that sentiment is an understandable sentiment and a valid sentiment, I always want to offer perspective. I don't mind when we speak on these types of topics because it affects black entertainers, and black entertainers do have a huge level of influence over the youth. That's what gives it even more merit. But I feel it's very important that we speak about these things with a level of compassion and understanding for the people that's involved. A lot of times we want to judge, but we don't want to take time to really understand the mentality of what we're judging. We don't want to understand the conditioning. So when you come from the poor environments, when you come from the projects, when you come from public housing, right? One thing is consistent. It's a certain narrative that's consistent. It's a certain trauma that's consistent. It's a certain experience that's consistent with being from the projects of America. It conditions you for dysfunction at a level that only people from those trenches can understand. So when I see what transpired with Durk allegedly, it doesn't make me want to judge him as much as it make me want to have compassion and even understand more, because I know the only reason why I'm not in that same position is because I was lucky in so many ways. I got so many homies that I grew up with that got jammed up, in prison now, all of that. And the only difference between them and me is a whole lot of luck. I'm thankful that ultimately, when it's all said and done, we're not judged for the worst of the things we do. So that's how I want to set the stage to have this little Durk conversation. From the outside looking in, it's very easy to say if the crimes that he's being accused of is true, right? It's easy to say, oh, he's stupid, he's this, he's that. But like, if you like me and you know that environment and you come from that environment and you know what the trenches breed and you know the type of conditioning that it is, you realize that's the mentality that it creates. And although Durk has made it out and he's made money and all of those things that we attribute to success, what we don't know is if he was able to reform the conditions of his mentality. Because in order for you to be able to make it from the places that I come from and Durk come from and Thug come from and Vaughn and, Kendrick and everybody that's from the projects of America, in order to overcome that, there has to be a change in the mentality. And if there isn't a change in the mentality, you'll always find your way still being a victim of those circumstances. So you have to have more understanding and compassion. If you're going to have a conversation, cool. Have a conversation. If you're going to judge, if that's your thing, cool. But everybody want to judge from the macro view. Let's talk about the micro. The question that I have is why I grew up in public housing. I've never seen public housing in America not have a few consistencies. One, there's always high crime, there's always high poverty, there's always liquor stores, there's always check cashing spots, there's very little resources, very few grocery stores, very few jobs, the schools are dilapidated, underfunded. I'm gonna say two handfuls of things that's always consistent. No matter, go to any public housing in the United States of America, and you'll find the same ingredients. My question is, if you find the same ingredients in every single public housing in America that you go to, how's it getting there? You find the same recipe and the same ingredients in every public housing. You're gonna breed the same results every single time. So I'm tired of us just talking about all of the things that we, being judgmental, we don't like about what people like Durk and all of them, the things that they succumb to. I'm tired of those conversations just remaining at the surface. Let's start peeling back these layers and start better understanding and holding each other accountable as a community, right, of poor black people. Let's have the real conversations and say, okay, we're not treating the symptoms anymore. Let's get to the root cause. Because the violence that you see, not a root cause, symptom. The illiteracy that you see, not a root cause, symptom. The dysfunction that you see, not a root cause, symptom. The questions that we really need to be asking is, what is this symptom of? And the answer that we have to be real about is truly the root cause is poverty. Everything else is a symptom. The root cause is poverty. Because as I said before, in every single public housing now, you got a few things that's consistent. No matter what city, state, zip code. Find the public housing that is controlled by Housing and Urban Development, HUD, which is a division of the federal government. You find the same consistencies. That's not happenstance. As I said before, I'll reiterate it a million times. The system is working exactly how it's intended to work. Don't fall for it. So now, if we recognize, and if we can recognize that the symptoms, that the root cause is poverty, and that's what's going, if we can attack the root cause, we get rid of all of the symptoms. Guess where all of our energy and effort need to go to? The root cause. What causes poverty? Now we asking questions. How do we have a 40% of the country on or below the poverty line? It's actually a little more than that. It's closer to 50% of the country lives on or below the poverty line. And this is the wealthiest country in America. This is the land of opportunity. Now, we're not talking about, third world country. We're talking about 40%, nearly 50% of the country live all on or below the poverty line. I think the statistic now is 70% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. Almost the same percent of the American populace can't afford a $500 emergency. And every one of those statistics I named is even more exaggerated when you narrow the demographic down to specifically black communities. So what do I mean by that? If the unemployment rate in America is 5%, then for the black community it's 10%. It nearly doubles, if not double or more, right? I want y'all to understand what that means. So if heart disease, if the rate of heart disease is 40% for the American populace, and these numbers, these figures aren't exact, I'm just creating a perspective for you so you can understand. If you narrow that demographic down just to black people, then it's 80%. So what does that mean for the symptoms and the root cause that I'm talking about? Well, now if we're seeing symptoms of violence, dysfunction, ignorance, and all of the things that we see, right? Criminality, criminal activity, you see all of that. If the root cause is poverty, we need to know what causes poverty. And then now we start asking, well, let's look at the ecosystem of the neighborhoods. Where's the infrastructure? Where's the schools? Where's the banks? Where's the grocery stores? I know I'm preaching again, but this is all the concepts that I talked about that we existed. Remember, I made the delineation between desegregation and assimilation, right? Right? We were segregated, looking to be desegregated. And instead of giving us integration, right, where two becomes one, they gave us assimilation, where they say, nigga, you better act like we deem acceptable if you want to be in our space, or we don't have no room for you. See, that's the difference in the understanding. So now we get back to that same conversation, and it's coming full circle again. So when you look at all the symptoms that we discussed, because what we see with Lord Durk is a symptom, what we see with Young Thug is a symptom. You could put insert any athlete, entertainer, anybody famous or unfamous. You can go through and see some of the things that's transpiring. All symptoms. The root cause is a common thread. The environment that they were conditioned in as youth or as children at some point in their life had one thing in common, and that was abject poverty. Had one thing in common, everything that comes with that abject poverty. Those are the things that we got to be real about. Now, that's the real conversations. That's the conversation that we got to have. So now we have to ask ourselves what's really going on. We're asking the wrong questions. We have to ask ourselves, why is poverty so prevalent? Because poverty breeds desperation. Desperation breeds criminality. We all want some of the basic things. When we don't get that, it turns to the worst part of the instincts of who we are as human beings. So we got to start asking the right questions. We'll pick back up on that. Listen, man, as always, like I said, I want to cover a wide range of topics, and I got to stay true to that. I'm going to touch on politics. Again, I'm always open to have the conversation, open to dialogue. We're getting closer to election time now. The election day is right around the corner. So obviously the political rhetoric has ramped up to all-time highs. I've never seen anything like the political season that I'm witnessing before me right now. And maybe because you're in the moment, it's kind of difficult to take the lens off and look at it from, a broader context, a broader point of view. But as it stands now in my lifetime, and the political, I was raised to be, let me preface it, I was raised to be politically aware. My parents were very politically aware, especially my mom. Always involved in local politics, ran for local office, so on and so forth. So I've always been politically aware. In my lifetime, I've never seen anything like what we experience in this political season. And so we are, and as far as politics is concerned, this is unprecedented times. The fact that Donald Trump is even a candidate is only evidence of the extent of the dysfunction of the time that we in. It's no other way to put it. And I always have to say, by no means is that an endorsement of Kamala, but I just have to keep it 100, yo. There's not a time this man is on screen talking about anything relevant that make me believe in any capacity that he's a decent human being on any level, like none. But I recognize, I understand the pathology. One, people like confidence and people like charisma. I know that's such an oversimplification, but it's that real. Most of the presence of Donald Trump is due to his confidence. Donald Trump is evidence that people will believe a confident lie 100% of the time. It doesn't really matter who he talk about putting into his cabinet. It don't really matter who he aligns himself with. His level of incompetence is, I don't even have an adjective for it. The only person that Donald Trump cares about himself, I'll reiterate that every chance I get. He don't care about anybody else. Everything else is a function of his own selfish agenda. Everything that he do is a motive of his own selfish agenda. So don't believe the hype. He's aligned himself with people like Robert Kennedy, Now, when it comes to a lot of the information that I've been on for years, I've been following Robert Kennedy for years. I was actually surprised when I seen him run for president early on in the race. But if I were to vote for any candidate at the time, it would have been Robert Kennedy, because I followed him for a long time and I liked his positions. First of all, his moral positions. I feel like he had a decent moral compass, and I'm a person of integrity first. So that was kind of the first thing that had me, you know, when I first got wind of Robert Kennedy, it was over 10 years ago now. But it was a lot of things that I aligned with in what he did in his personal and professional career. So when I seen him running, you know, my antennas was up, but I understand the political landscape. I also understand the two-party system. So I know running as an independent, it wasn't going to get him far, but I was still interested to see how it was going to play out. Only for him to ultimately drop out of the race and then align with Donald Trump. Now I have to question your moral compass, because you align with somebody who's morally bankrupt. And at this point, I know Robert Kennedy is only looking to serve his own agenda, and he has a more noble agenda than per se Trump. But you're willing to align with somebody like Trump to try to achieve your agenda, and the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to get lost in translation. You're going to have to deal with the residue of aligning with somebody as morally bankrupt as Trump. And then you have Elon Musk on one end. Elon Musk is lobbying for Trump more than any one individual is lobbying for a candidate. He's dedicated his whole platform to ensure that there's the positive propaganda behind Trump is always readily apparent. So that's one thing. Another thing with Elon is another person that has this selfish agenda that he's trying to press as well. Obviously, you know, he has the SpaceX program. He has a lot of things with artificial intelligence that he's working on. He's also working on the chip, right? The Neuralink chip that will be implanted into the brain, that's going to have on one end the effects of giving a sense of normalcy to people born with certain birth defects and physical disabilities. But on the other end, as we all know, it'll be weaponized, because that's the military industrial complex. So you have, you know, all of those things going on in real time, on top of the typical rhetoric of Donald Trump. All of those things are the smallest. That's the sidebars. I think what people need to be aware of is, and I said this last political season, 60 million people came out and voted for Trump. There's 60 million people that felt like everything that he's done is no matter how disgusting, no matter how ridiculous, it's acceptable enough for me to cast my vote for him. Every single person. America has a much larger problem at hand, and this political season is peeling back the layers of what that problem is. And this is not a problem that's just going to go away. We saw glimpses of it with January 6th. January 6th, although more information continues to come out to see that in some ways it was controlled dysfunction, it was controlled chaos. But January 6th was, the foundations of it was rooted in millions of people emboldened and empowered by the idea that they didn't feel like Trump lost, and they were willing to do whatever in protest of that. Now, the reason why I say information come out is information continues to come out that indicates that the hand of the clandestine services was involved in what transpired to ramp people up. The people was there. These are human beings. They made their decisions. There is some information that's alleging that the clandestine services of America played into people's insecurities by emboldening them when they was there. Guess what? Newsflash. It's been happening to black people for forever. The riots that they talk about, right? The peaceful protests that turn into riots. Guess who's present? The clandestine services of America, undercover operatives, undercover agents, starting the violence every time. It's never the peaceful protesters. This is what black people has been trying to tell y'all for forever. Ironically, the public at large won't listen to it until it's happening to their beloved Trump and their beloved Trump supporters. Now, all of a sudden, people are saying, oh, look at what the FBI did. Look at what the CIA did. The Black Panther Party was giving out free breakfast. They was ensuring, supporting literacy programs. It was creating resources for our communities. Guess what the FBI and the CIA did? I don't have any sympathy for that. So yes, when it comes to January 6th, it's a lot of unanswered questions in there, but this is what we know for a fact. It was enough of the idiots in the mix that thought it was a good idea to storm the Capitol and be visible with your face on camera and think that there was going to be no repercussion. This is the level of idiocy that I'm talking about within the political party. And I just have to be real. Trump is preying on the ignorance of the people that support him, the blind faith of the people that support him. So I'll start there, and then don't even get me talking about this rally with the comedian dude from Kill Tony. Like, again, give them a platform to show their true colors, and they will. Now the Puerto Ricans mad. We was trying to tell y'all that, Nicky Jam, and your fake teeth. That's what we was trying to tell y'all. Oh, now, because he ain't talking about black people, he talking about Puerto Ricans. Now everybody got all the Puerto Ricans got a problem. So what you saying was it was okay for him to talk crazy about black people or disabled people or any other subgroup of people. And that was cool because he still had your support. Now you withdrawing that support over these comments because a comedian said it's an island out there a floating pile of trash in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I think you've heard of it. Puerto Rico. Now everybody mad. This is what we've been trying to tell y'all. No matter how Trump try to repackage himself or appeal, it don't matter because at the core of it is racism. At the core of it is prejudice. At the core of it is egomania. At the core of it is all the worst qualities of power. Now, I'm going to tell you why Trump is having the success that he's having. Because for a long time, a lot of the racists and prejudice and all of the things that I talk about, people felt that way, but couldn't say it for fear of retribution, for fear of repercussion. Now, those same people have the platform to say the quiet things out loud. See, before they was just calling you a nigga over dinner with their family. Before they was calling you trash with their friends in private. Now they stand in the middle of Madison Square Garden calling all Puerto Ricans trash. Say it's a whole island of it. And being met with applause. Y'all playing a political game. Listen, all you have to do, and I believe it was, I want to make sure I get a charge to the right person. I think it was Lyndon Baines Johnson. I ain't sure. But I think it was him. But there was a particular political candidate that said, you can make the lowest of the lowest white man feel better than the highest of the highest, most esteemed black person. And he won't even notice your hand in his pocket. As a matter of fact, he'll take the money out of his pocket and give it to you. And that analogy reigns so true today because what we're seeing in this political landscape is there's an underbelly of America that has been laying dormant. And remember, America is foundationally racist. That's not up for debate. America was built on racism. It's not up for debate. That's why when you criticize racism, people think you criticizing America because they're one and the same. So when you look at it, it's this underbelly of America that's been lying dormant, they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, and so forth. And Trump recognized that he can speak to that underbelly and he'll have a loyal following. And that's what he has. And that's what he built his political platform on. And I don't support anybody that supports division in any capacity. So there you have it. Now, on the other side of the aisle, you have a level of arrogance. That's what got them in trouble when Hillary was running. They were so confident that it turned into arrogance, and Hillary lost. We can say that arrogance is the reason why Donald Trump exists, but we're not learning from our mistakes. Well, the Democratic Party are not learning from what happened with Hillary. When y'all was so confident that everything was good to go and all of the polls were saying Hillary was winning, and then she had egg in her face and couldn't come out and give a concession speech that night because she was too emotionally distraught. Oh, strong Hillary was so emotionally distraught she couldn't even give her concession speech when Trump won in 2016. She was devastated. It's that same arrogance that'll get you caught up again. They pulling out all of the dirty tricks. I seen a commercial that was funded by a left-wing group that literally they've resorted to the old tactics of guilt tripping you. Your people won't know who you vote for, but the fact that you voted will be public record, so your friends and your families will be able to see who you vote for. Man, listen, I don't give a fuck. You're not gonna guilt trip me into voting for one party or the next. You're not gonna use no sort of reverse psychology. My family know me. They know how I get down. I have whatever conversation I need to have with them. That's not going to scare me into voting one way or the other. And I'm like, yo, it's crazy. Like I'm going to be so glad when this political season is over, on God. But guess what? It's just going to pick back up in 3.5 years. Every 4 years is the same thing. Emotional volatility, crazy candidates, crazy allegations, this, that, and the third. The election take place, and then we spend the next 4 years in anticipation of the same. It's insanity. How do you do it? If I was as emotionally engaged in the political climate, in the political season, as some of you were, I would be too exhausted to do anything else. And that goes for both Democrats and Republicans. You know, the one qualm that I have with Kamala is, no matter what interview I've seen her in, she just reeks of a politician. There is nothing genuine about her, like nothing. Everything is calculated and contrived and practiced and rehearsed. She literally reeks of politician because she's a product of the establishment. So I'm not surprised by that. I can look at her pedigree and see this is what it's going to do. And that's what she'll do. But what the American populace is really looking for, and this is on the flip side why Donald Trump been able to get as much traction as he's been able to get, is because the idea of the politician is so repulsive that people are willing to accept any alternative, even if that alternative is Donald Trump. Even if that alternative is the worst of the underbelly of America. People say, I would rather pick that. I would rather deal with the devil I don't know than the devil that I've been seeing every 4 years. So it's difficult for me to like Kamala in any capacity. I watch, I check interviews, I want to be informed. Nothing about her is genuine. I see through everything that she is representing. And so I know you're just operating as the political arm of, or rather the political face of the Democratic Party. I understand the force that's behind you. I understand the institution that's behind you. No party, and I've said this a million times, speaking to and for black people, no party is going to serve us as a community of people. None. No party that exists. We have to create a party of ourselves, and is to look out for ourselves. So the whole, is she black, is she not, that don't matter to me, because she represents an entity, and nothing is bigger than the entity. Same for Trump. He represents what he represents. Nothing is bigger than the entity. So it really don't matter who's in office. You can look back at the last 40 years, and whether it was a Democrat or a Republican in office, our communities as black people suffered. I'm going to continue to repeat that until somebody hear me. Doesn't matter who has been in office for the last however long you want to put on it, Democrat or Republican. Our community suffered, and they'll continue to suffer because we have to pivot and understand that we have to create the resources for ourselves. We have to create the means for ourselves, and we have to create a society within society. We have to create a government within a government of black people. We have to create a political process within the confounds of this, because it's not going to get any better from here. This genie is not going to be able to go back in the bottle. We're not. This is the new norm. The polarization that you see is the new norm. It's not even. Listen to people talk about politics. I had a gentleman, 66-year-old gentleman from the Deep South. We was able to create a connection, and we had conversation. And this gentleman was a white man from the Deep South, and he was telling me how important it is for me to vote for Trump. He was pulling out all the stops to convince me why it's important for me. And I respected his position because he took time to not only listen, but we dialogued about some things. And in that conversation, he said, you know what? And I'll do it. And I'm going to record a separate video talking about the dialogue in full. But to kind of give the footnotes, he was saying to me, he was like, you know, it's not often that I get to talk to, and he didn't say this, but this was the implication. He didn't say this verbatim, but this is what he was implying with what he said. He says, not often I get to talk to a young black man that has the political awareness that you have. So I'm interested. I want to talk. I want to learn your position. I want to know why you wouldn't vote for him given what we talk about. And I explained to him specifically with a lot of the things that I outlined in this conversation. But in it, although he obviously still didn't agree with me, and he'll still cast his vote for who he cast his vote for. That's fine. My goal wasn't to change his mind. He opened up the door to ask me and tell me and advocate for me to vote for Trump. And I explained to him why the party system that exists and the political system that exists in America is failing and will continue to fail. One thing that he and I had in common, although he was a 66-year-old white man from the Deep South, I'm a 35-year-old black man from Maryland, we both grew up in poverty. We both grew up poor. And when I started to connect that bridge for him, and I started to talk about policy, and I started to talk about economic infrastructure, that is the reason why both of us grew up in poverty, it created a whole different conversation. And now he listening, intrigued. And again, I'll make a separate video on that because it was a very insightful conversation, very fruitful conversation. So I'll make a separate video about what he and I talked about in depth. But again, the same principle that I talked about in the earlier situation when I was talking about Durk and when I was talking about Thugga is the same thing. It's the same analogy I use right now. What we all talking about is symptoms. Donald Trump is a symptom. All of his supporters are symptoms. Kamala Harris is a symptom. All of her supporters are symptoms. Now let's start talking about the root cause. Why are we seeing the political polarization that we're seeing today? Why we're seeing the dysfunction that we're seeing today? Why we're seeing the infighting that we're seeing today? Why are we seeing the worst of human beings over political affiliation that we're seeing today? That's the real answers. That's the root. When we answer that question, we'll find the root cause. Let me tell you a secret. The root cause for that scenario is the same root cause when I was talking about Durk and Thug. Capitalism, and I said this before, I'll repeat it again in closing. The blueprint for capitalism was slavery. Capitalism is what creates the economic disparities that we see between rich and poor. And if that's the case, then capitalism is responsible for creating the conditions that create Little Durk, that create Young Thug, that create me, that create my siblings, that create my friends that I grew up with. And if that's the case, then we have to ask, who's responsible for the manipulation of capitalism? Who's responsible for creating a socio-economic condition that keeps poor people being capitalized? The poor majority continues to be capitalized on, and the wealthy minority continues to capitalize. Let me tell you a secret. It's not really a secret either. It's the Federal Reserve. It's another conversation for another day. Ultimately, the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. I'm going to leave you with this point. The Constitution said Congress coins money. The Constitution said Congress is responsible for the printing and dissemination of money, of currency. The Federal Reserve controls the amount of money in circulation. It controls the interest rates. It controls inflation. Those three things right there have more effect on the American populace than any politician that has been in office for the last 100 years. And you know who controls the Federal Reserve? I'm going to tell you, it's not the federal government. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than the Federal Express. Yeah, I'm talking FedEx, the people that deliver your packages. Yeah, they're business. They're a private business. It's nothing federal about Federal Express that delivers your package, except it's in the name. There is nothing federal about the Federal Reserve except that it's in the name. They control the amount of money in circulation. They control the interest rates. They control the inflation. And those three things control the socio-economic welfare of the American public at large. And they are a private entity. They are a private bank with a board of directors. Every dollar in circulation have been loaned to the federal government by the Federal Reserve to be paid back to the Federal Reserve with interest. Every dollar that the federal government collect from you in taxes doesn't go to infrastructure. That's why our bridges are collapsing. That's why our roadways are horrible. It's not going to schools. That's why our teachers are underfunded. That's why our teachers in schools are under-resourced. Every tax dollar that they collect from you is paid back to the Federal Reserve on the interest on the loan that they gave for the dollars that's in circulation. Congress, the Constitution says Congress coins money. And the Federal Reserve print the dollars that we have. That's fiat currency. That's what fractional reserve banking is. For every dollar that a bank have in reserve, they have the ability to loan out $100 on every dollar that's in reserve. The only thing that gives money in its value in a fiat currency system is the collective belief of the people that operate within that fiat currency that this is a form of tender. If we all woke up tomorrow and said we're no longer trading goods and services for dollars, we're no longer trading time for dollars, and we create another form, guess what? The dollar would just be a piece of paper. It would no longer have value. That's not real value. You know what's real value? Resource. Lithium is real value. Gold, real value. Platinum, real value. Diamond, real value. Oil, real value. Do I need to go on and on and on? The natural resource is the true value. Fiat currency is a system that is created. That was what? The blueprint for what? Capitalism was what? Slavery. But instead of physical slavery, this is no longer chattel slavery. We're in a perpetual system of economic slavery. Now, that's why 40% of the country live on or below the poverty line. That's why 70% of the country live paycheck to paycheck. Because instead of being taught what a fractional reserve economy is, instead of being taught what the Federal Reserve is and how it operates, we're not taught anything of substance as it pertains to how to maintain financial welfare in this country while we're in school. And by the time we turn 18, this very same federal government say, here, take this student loan. Let me introduce you to debt. And guess what? To the Federal Reserve, a system that's built on the ability to loan out money based on a limited number in reserve, that is money. Now you see the system coming full circle. I promise you, one day I'm going to dedicate a full episode, an entire episode, to just talk about economics, to just talk about the system of governance that we live under from a money standpoint. But I bring all this, I started off talking about the political climate, and I got here because I need you to understand, and this is where I put the bow on it. If you follow the money, the same interest, the same financial interest that's backing the left wing is backing the right wing. The same financial interest that's paying the Democratic Party is paying the Republican Party. The more we realize that the informed minority is controlling the uninformed majority, the more we will spend more time as the majority to ensure that we inform. And once the information is transferred, the playing field is level. The transference of wealth has to start with the transference of information. The information has been gatekept. They've been gatekeeping the information to that minority, that informed minority that I was talking about. Once that system is broken and there's a transference of information, then we can ensure that there's a transference of wealth. But as long as the system continue to operate as it's operating, the only thing we're going to see, the only thing I can guarantee you, is the disparity between rich and poor will continue to grow. The middle class will continue to be an illusion because the middle class doesn't exist anymore. Based on the statistics that I just gave, it does not exist anymore. It is 100% an illusion. It's the glass ceiling to keep the poor people thinking that at some point they could be rich. And it's also the tool that's used by the rich and wealthy to control. That's, as long as the system is at play, that's what we'll see. We'll continue to see that perpetuated. I promise you I want to talk more about that, and I will. I'll dedicate another episode. I'll take the time, and we're going to break down some of these concepts and ideas so that the transference of information can begin, because it's already beginning. It's already beginning. So we're going to start this revolution off with a transference of information, and then subsequently we'll create the transference of wealth. And then after that, we're going to see how it play out. Again, I appreciate you for rocking with me. This is Icons and Ideas presents The World According to Nellz. I am yours truly, Nellz. Don't forget, please go to my website, iamknellz.com. Merch coming soon. Download my music, play my music, stream the podcast on YouTube. I'm going to make sure everything get on Spotify and all of that. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. I appreciate you. Thank you for rocking with me.
In the Mason, Margielas, unreleased color palettes, make them all jealous. You could buy the drip, but the swag so separate. Ponytail poppy, now I sport the fade. Woke up one morning, said it's time for a change. I am one of one, my name is my name. Cartier, cedar core, vintage wood frames. Everything clear when you living in the air. In the pilot on call, press a button and you there. Or your car got a roof, press a button, disappear. On the coupe, like poof, everything I do is rare, but I swear, if you could walk a mile in my shoes, you would stop it. If you could pull the bitches that I pull, you be solid. Manifesting everything I am, I'm a prophet. And when it comes to that bottom line, I want profit.